All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to a From There to Here broadcast. Very pleased to have Mr. Derrick Collins with us. I don't like to introduce too much of my guests because I want them to kind of talk about it. But in a very general sense, we'll say that he works with mentoring. That has to do with the name of his organization. So he has a picture into what younger people need, and he has a organization that helps provide those things for our young people. So much more that I could say, but I want to let it come out in the conversation. So,
Right.
Mr. Derrick Collins, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and I know we've been trying to do this for for some time, but we got around to it. Timing is everything.
100%, 100%. One question I do ask almost every guest is, are you familiar with the term elevator speech? Heard that term before?
Yes, we've been working
Got it.
on it with some of our kids as well. So,
That's perfect. So if I ask, for those who don't know, an elevator speech is you kind of, you're in an elevator with someone, they ask you, what are you about? In just a few seconds, you're going to boil down your existence in a few words. So if I had to ask you, what's your elevator speech, Mr. Collins, what would you say?
I would say my name is Derrick Collins, Program Director of the Mr. and Miss Mentoring Program. In short, we provide mental health services. We provide case management services. um, we try to help encompass the family as a whole, so we do a little bit more than just the meeting with the kids. Um, we see kids that are dealing with at-risk youth. We're dealing with at-risk youth who are having behavioral issues, who are having some type of mental health problems, and are considered low income or under the poverty level. So, and adjust, we deal with that type of population, ages 9 to 17. But we also, on a small side of basis, we deal with ages 18 to 24, but that's catered towards independence and self-sufficiency and those kind of things.
Okay. Uh, I'm going to ask you about your journey into this in a bit, but I'll ask you now, how about sometimes I like to say things that I know are false so that the guest can correct them. So, or these things that are not accurate enough. So a person who doesn't work with kids, who does not have younger kids, they might typically say things like, these kids today, man, they just bad. They're worse than when we were. They're just bad, disrespectful. I don't know what's wrong with these kids.
Right.
A general comment like that, how would you respond, clarify to a blanket statement like that?
Uh, I mean, what I've learned over time is that everybody has their own what do you say, their own experience with certain things. So that person might have had a negative experience with a youth or somebody in the family that's what they're experiencing. So in their mind, they're kind of bad. But that's usually in most cases they're not looking into why the kid is bad in the first place or what else is going on with the kid to really understand why they are acting that way in the first place. So most of those people that are making those blank statements, they're not the ones that are trying to fix the problem. They're just the one that's just talking a lot of crap.
Okay, all right, fair to say. You work with largely at-risk youth, but from
Yeah.
your experience with them, and even just broadening it to kids in general, from that more or less middle and high school age, what are some things that you see that kids need um, from us, from adults? So just what are some things that you see that kids are lacking, whether they go to the extreme end of being in at risk or just kids in general? What are some things kids need? It might be the same as always, or maybe you'll tell me something new. What would you say?
Well, well, when you say always, I know a lot of people say do a sport or join a club um or I don't know. A lot of people have different. Everybody's different. Different discipline, is different. Structure is different in everybody's family. So it's hard to make those general statements, blanket statements, because a parent might come into my office and say certain things, and I'm like, that's really not you really pushing it a little bit. Versus, they might say that same stuff to another therapist who hasn't been experienced or been around a certain type of culture to understand that is normal, and then they might take it to the extreme and call it DCF and all this other stuff when
Mm,
in reality that didn't really need to. that's just normal. DCF isn't going to stop certain people's culture or way of doing things, so
Okay.
that's I'll start off with that. But and sometimes it is hard to kind of do like give a blanket statement. But if you say if
Okay.
we're going back to just what the kids need, um, they need outlets, but outlets look a lot different for different people in different families. A kid out there in the country might like fishing when the boy in the city and the kid in the city ain't touching the fish, ain't going near the water because they can't swim. It's a lot of stuff that we could play into why certain kids need different outlets and those kind of things. So with my program, I focus on stuff that I've kind of either dealt with or know my population or my culture sees as positive or a way to escape issues. So we do that with music, we do that with physical contact or sports or boxing or release. We do that with art and creativity that the culture has, and we do that with kind of being in tune with ourselves and going to therapy and it's hearing it from somebody that looks like them so they can kind of relate a little bit different. So we focus on what we can do
Okay.
for the people that we feel it can connect to best.
Yeah. No, I listen, I love the fact that you didn't just give me a blanket say a blanket answer because people from outside what you do figure this they're just blanket one size fits all answers. And that you put even the aspect of culture on it. Okay, I got it. You're giving us nuances that we wouldn't see from our outside view.
Right.
Uh, let's take it to your story for a little bit. When you were maybe the age of some of the kids you deal with, 10 years old. Did you see yourself doing the things, following the career path or whatever that you ended up on back as a fifth, sixth grader? What was this on your radar, or if not, what was it? Because we like our viewers to see the path of how someone goes from A to B. So, what was
Um,
young Derrick going to do then?
Young Derek was thinking about sports at that time. He was thinking, well, not even, I wouldn't even say that because that's around the time where I kind of transitioned from New York City to Florida.
Okay.
So, a New York life is a lot different than a Florida life, so you have to kind of adjust. And, I went from a city boy to a country boy to, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. You adjust, and those life changes. Me being in the city might have not pushed me to where I'm at. You never know. So anyway, so at that time, usually at that point, you're trying to do some type of sports or or not even worrying about that at that time. You're thinking about just girls and different stuff. You're not even really thinking about it. My daughter, she's going to be different because I'm pushing that on her and exposing her to what I'm doing and she's seeing it first light. So she's gonna have a different outlook at her age than I did because she's having a different experience.
Okay. Yeah. Well, where did the turn towards mentoring, counseling, the things you're doing, when and how did that turn come into your life?
Man, I don't think it ever turned into my life. It was just natural. My mom's a teacher, my dad's a therapist. It's simple. So I ended up going if sports didn't work out. So these are the routes that naturally just come easy to me because I've been around a teacher. So that means I had to be at the school all day after school, bored, and got to go to whatever activities and meetings she got to go to. And she's a volleyball coach, so I got to stay and watch volleyball. So you know, um, all of those things play a part. And my dad having to go to the therapy office and sit in the other office until he's done, and hearing
Wow.
these people talk about crazy stuff and you know, and not know, what I'm saying? You just see, as a kid, you're like, oh, you're just they're random people. But in reality, these people had issues. So, I was kind of raised up on that. So I was always kind of like a helper, I guess,
Okay.
or somebody that makes that is, in support of a person. The teacher is in support of the kids. Therapist is in support of the adults and that kind of stuff. So, I didn't know if they were addicts. I didn't know if they were molesters. I didn't know what they were. I just know that there were people coming in and my dad was seeing them. So
Wow.
that's kind of what I so it's naturally that I became into that. But I could have went a lot of different routes. But uh, most people when they say the acorn don't fall too far from the tree. So in most cases, both of my parents were support and services type of people. So it's natural for me to fall right back into it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Especially kids of teachers, particularly. I've seen them try to run and go do something else, but they always end up teaching, even if they don't do it for a career. They end up doing it just out of their life. So and the therapist part as well. I get it. Now, how tell us a little bit more, if you can, about your organization that you lead, please.
More, um,
Or like some basis like how and when or even why did you start it? Things about the origin of it, if you don't mind.
well, I started doing just it really wasn't. It was therapy. That wasn't the mentoring. The mentoring, I've worked for all of the agencies around here that did therapy, and I kind of see what they did and what they didn't do, and what wasn't really working, and that kind of stuff. So, or not working. Not that it wasn't working, but that I could just see differently if I did it on my own.
Yeah.
So I went the route of deciding to do that after I built up some networking and those kind of things. And I just added the mentoring component to it because therapy sometimes I felt like wasn't enough. Um, and that's where the case management and the mentoring and that kind of stuff comes into play because it's kind of like just having somebody just to be there for you and support you might get you on the right track versus you feeling like you have to go see a therapist because something's wrong with you. You know, you
Okay.
know, unless it's traumatic and something traumatically happened to you, that's a little bit different because you have to process that and have some treatment and work on that and
Hmm.
discuss that. But if it's really just you're a kid and you just have no hope and you just nothing happened to you, you just don't know what to do with your life or acting up, your daddy's not home, or not in the life at all. Those are things that you got to kind of take into to a part of. They might not need the red tape of therapy. They just might need some type of support.
Okay, I got that. Now, a question that I ask creative people, like in the arts or whatever, but I also ask people in your line of work too. Have you're the therapist, the mentor, etc. But you also lead an organization or a business, so you have to assume you have to wear those business type hats as well.
Right.
What has it been learning to do both? The mentoring part of you, the part of it that I would assume comes natural to you, and then maybe the business paperwork side that doesn't normally come so natural. What's that juggling been like?
For therapists, I'll say, like I said, of course, if you're not a therapist, you wouldn't know, but the paperwork is the biggest obstacle, I guess you would say sometimes, because it's one thing to do the service, then it's also like you got to explain what the service you did. So that's the difference. Um, and like you said, I'm the owner, so I'm having to wear a lot of hats while doing the therapy service. So eventually when you grow, you have to kind of take a step back from being the actual service provider, and then you have to be able to do assessments and put the right people in place to do the service so you could be, do a little bit more with the business side because you can't grow just seeing 100 million kids.
Yeah,
So,
no, I can,
because if I'm
I
doing
see
that,
that.
I'm not doing the paperwork, and then I'm not paying the bills, and then I'm not doing the marketing so everybody can see what we're doing. And what I'm saying, it doesn't work like that.
Okay, I see that. Now, you mentioned the athletic part. Like when I met you was on a basketball court not far from my house. Coincidentally, a coworker mentioned this therapist who combined athletics and physical things with the mentoring part. And like a week later, came on the court, bumped into you, and somehow we realized, oh, wait a minute, you're that young man that Ms. Mitchell was talking about.
Right.
Um, and almost the last time I played basketball, actually, y'all about killed me, but we'll talk about that later. I forgive you. But my question is, could you talk about how and why you involve the physical aspect with the mentoring and the counseling? Because that's what caught my attention when I first heard about you, because I hadn't heard about them being put together like that.
Well, I mean, in most cases, they're not put together. You go to most therapy sessions, they're just going to sit down and talk. That's pretty much what you're going to do. I know for me, I didn't ever go to therapy, so it wasn't like I had this and now I know how important it is and all that stuff. My dad was a therapist, but it was like he might have been doing therapy on me, but I didn't feel like I was in a therapy. I didn't have a sit down with him in his office, you know. So um, to be honest, it was more of like a, how do I explain it? Say the question again so I can say the question
Why,
again.
why do you incorporate the physical in what you do, and
Okay,
what role does it play in helping these kids, people?
so like I said, I never been in a session, so I don't know technically that's how it was supposed to be until I started working. But I know for me, myself, it was boring. It was not boring, but it wasn't. I didn't get as much out of it. And in most cases, the kids that were being seen are usually forced into it. So because they're getting in trouble, now you got to go see a therapist, or you having all these issues, so you got to go see this person. So most cases, they don't really want to see you in the first place, or probation. They're forced to see you. So a lot of times, it's kind of like they just want to get it over with, and you allowing to first of all, if you're doing something physical, you're releasing endorphins, and you're doing a activity either way, whether you throw therapy in there or not. So
Yeah,
think about that. You're supposed to work out or do something at least 15 minutes a day, all that good stuff. So, or physical activity, maybe not weights, but at least some kind of walking or physical activity.
okay,
So even if just you take the physical side of things, you're improving their health side of things, will make them relax, which will make them think straight or be a little bit more not at ease or irritable or angry or depressed. It'll do that just by if you just take them out there and walk and don't
yeah,
say anything to them and just do that. So when you're adding a component, they both have their advantages. So not only are you helping them on the health side, the second thing is they're not thinking about the issues that they're having because
yeah,
they're doing that physical activity. So their barriers and their doors and all that stuff is closed, or that would normally be up for you. If
yeah,
you just sit in the office and say, "Hey, all right, let's talk about dad touching you," okay, they're not gonna be like, "Oh yeah, let's talk about that right away." In most cases. But if they're walking and the birds are chirping and the scenery, and they can breathe because it's outside and it's just free, and you, not saying you jump to that too. Hey, what's up with your dad? Say that either.
wow,
But they might normally start talking about, well, how are things with your parents, or how you might openly they might be openly more able to talk about that freely because they're kind of somewhat distracted in the most part.
okay,
If a kid is
hmm,
playing on a basketball court, you saw I was with a kid, that was like our bonding time. Then when we're sitting over there drinking water, we're talking, and so how's school, and how are your mom told me you got in trouble, blah blah blah. You throw that in there between us playing, because I'm not talking about that while I'm passing him the ball.
yeah,
But and you guys were out there as well. If you guys weren't out there, it would just be me and him, and I can't just talk to him while he's shooting and stuff like that.
yeah,
So but that builds his confidence. He won. He had teamwork, so that's social skills. He had other people that he was going against, so that's conflict resolution. And it's a lot
mm,
of things you can throw in if you want to throw in there all these technical terms and stuff. But for the black and white, it looks like he just played basketball,
yeah,
right? It might look like that, but I just explained to you in 10 seconds how much more it was in reality.
okay,
So, and I get a lot more done with that than him coming in. I'm sitting on the other side of the desk, asking him questions. He's talking. He's like, "All right, are we done yet?"
yeah,
That kind of thing. It's way more.
okay, I got it. Well, yeah, you're right. There's a whole lot more than just what we see to the eye in a couple of seconds, like just hooping, but there's more to it. Uh, you mentioned culture several times as when we're trying to understand why kids do what they do and its situations, etc. Someone asked me, I was at a workshop once with educators, law enforcement. It was a gang related event years ago. But the question I've brought this up several times. It was about trying to deal with negative behaviors, but this was gang focused. But I want to generalize it. A person raised her hand and she said, culturally or experience wise, I don't have anything in common with a lot of my students that might be prone toward this lifestyle. but I want to help. And her question was, if I'm from a different background, culture, finance, whatever, from these kids or from anybody, can I still have an impact on them, even though our personal lives or whatever are so different? If you were asked that question, what would be your response?
Yeah, definitely. You can have different, you can have it. Like I said, it just makes it easier for them to look like me and those kind of things. But I have kids that are white. I have kids that are Indian and Spanish, and I've seen them all. I've seen girls. I don't, that's not a preference, but I've seen little girls because I've seen the importance of she ain't got no daddy. She doesn't have a male anyway, so I'm the only positive. That's just as important of her seeing a positive male, black male versus the boy.
Got
Um,
it.
so
Support.
yes, I would prefer her to see a woman for her services, but that doesn't mean that my assessment, her seeing, having that interaction with me at events still. It's kind of like a father figure-ish kind of, I guess you would say. They're not
Mhm.
seeing me day to day, but they might come to an event and they say, "Oh, well, that's Mr. Collins," and I check on them and say, "How you doing?" Or if I see her not doing anything girlish, or it's like, "Hey, what you doing?" Like, but
Yeah,
I'm not coming to do therapy on her. I'm just in a fatherly way. Nah,
yeah.
we're not twerking out here. That's not what we're doing. So. Or what are you wearing? That's we're at a community kid event. That's kind of short. Do a little bit. Here's this little jacket, wrap around. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. Those are the little things that they're probably not used to. That stands apart. You
Yeah.
know, somebody else might not say it because that's not their kid or they don't have no relationship with them. But you got in here through me in the first place. I saw you. I know all about you. So it's a little bit different. Like I'm not your therapist, but I could have been your therapist if I kept you. It's like
Yeah.
I know all about you. You got in here through me. You had to go through me to get to this. So it's kind of
Okay.
like it's still a connection. I just had to. It's not my like, hey, I see them every day. I'm their person when they come to the schools. I'm not
Hmm.
that person for them no more. But I'm that. Hey, if anything goes wrong, call Mr. Collins. Or if it's not something big, call. It's kind of like you might call your brother for a kid bullying you or hitting you, but you might call your dad if somebody pulled a gun out on you or something big, because your big brother can't really deal with that. That's
Yeah.
dad's situation. So I
Okay.
kind of I kind of look at it like that.
Okay. And I figured that. I knew it wasn't only limited to one culture, but I wanted to give you the chance to share that with us. Um,
Oh,
couple more questions.
before, but real quick, and I want to go too on that. The person who has helped me the most, I guess you would say, as business standpoints, is an old white guy with gray hair. So when we go to lunch, they're looking at us like, why are these two together? And that kind of like, you look crazy, that kind of thing. And but he's the one that has all that real estate experience. He's the one that has all of that big time stuff that, I love my dad, but he didn't have that. He taught me he was the example of having a business and that kind of stuff, but he didn't teach me how to do the business. I had to
Yeah.
figure that out kind of on my own. This guy is a little bit different. He's literally my business go-to. If something happens, or I'm like, yo, hey, what do you think? Or something like
Yeah.
that, because that's
Yeah.
outside of my scope. I'm not trying to be the expert in everything. I'm an expert in mental health and business standpoints. Um, but then when it comes into like the finances and the huge, auditing and stuff, that it's like, until you get to over a certain amount, you don't even have to deal with this stuff.
Okay.
You know, if you're a small little non for profit and you just bring it in just to do an event and pay yourself, whatever like that, that's cool. You can do that all day. But once you start getting into the government contracts and the Medicaid and the
Yeah.
salaries,
Mm.
okay, now you made over, let's say, give you an example, 150,000, 250,000. Now they want to know where their money is going. I mean, they want to know that anyway, but now there's an audit, and now there's certain things that play a part into that.
Yeah, and that I'm glad you share that kind of that business hat alongside the, I'm gonna call it the heart hat, and helping the people and all that, but the business part of it as well. And yeah, that the mentor doesn't have to look like you, be like you, or whatever. No, that's a big message for everybody to know that one. I want to ask you a couple more things. One, I asked this of to a lot of my guests as well. An imaginary conversation. Let's say you have a friend and they have an 18-year-old. They're about to graduate high school. They're a good kid. They've done things well, but the kid feels very unsure about what they'd like to do in life after high school. And they say, "Listen, Derrick, you're so put together. I want you to take him out to lunch and sit down and talk with him and give him some help as far as that." So you go out and sit with them. What could you imagine that conversation being like with that 18-year-old? Good kid's done all the right things, but just doesn't know what he wants to be, in quotes. What would you imagine that conversation being like?
Um, so over the years, I've learned how to approach certain things, because it's like I've come across so many different people and personalities and ages and races and all that stuff, that you can't do everything the same way, but you can kind of start your baseline off of similar things. Like that's why assessments, you have similar questions. That question can apply to a lot of different things, but you ask that baseline question and kind of um, guide where that person is going. So in order to do a diagnosis, you ask, okay, are you having depression, or are you having anxiety? Are you having anger? That automatically cuts you into a bucket of where you are. And then
Yeah.
you break it down a little bit more and blah, 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 all that stuff. So in reality, that conversation would look like, what are your interests? That's simple. I mean, it ain't simple because everybody don't know their interests, but
Hmm.
um, know your interests. What are some things you like to do? What is your passion? What are you good at naturally? What are you good at? Are you somebody that puts stuff together? Are you somebody that's real intensive to detail, so you can paint, or
Hmm.
do those kind of things, or cleaning, or so you see what you're good at naturally. You know what you're looking at on Instagram and social media. Those are the things what you're looking at. That's easy to find. The algorithm will tell you that. When you go to the For You thing, it says what you're looking at, because that's what you liking, and that's what you're
Wow.
looking up, and that's what
Good
you're
point.
scrolling on. So it tells you. You want to know who a person is? Go to their Instagram, go to their little search thing, and it'll put what they look at and what they see and what they're researching in their thing for them to look at.
Got that.
So like I said, it's pretty simple, and it's easy once
Wow.
you get it down to a kind of like to a T. Um, so like I said, I would start there. I would say, I always add some kind of, what are you doing physically? What are you doing to get outside of the house? What are your friends like? What are your ambitions? Some people just want to be rich. And then once they get the money, it's like, okay, I got that. Now what? So now, because it wasn't a passion, it wasn't, I could, if I wanted to just make a whole bunch of money, I wouldn't be in social services. I wouldn't be a therapist. I
Okay.
could, I'll be in business and be like a financial, I'll be into that, because that's where
Yeah.
the money is,
Okay.
so um so you got to know what you're doing. It's a passion. I would like that, because my bank account is a little bit nicer and stuff like that, but in reality, I feel like if I continue to do what I'm doing, my bank account will be okay either way. Because the more I give, I mean, the more I have, the more I give. So
Yeah.
um I was never, like, for example, I was never that guy that was like, oh, I'll get the tab and I'll do that, because I needed that money. I couldn't just
Yeah.
give it away. But
Okay.
now, when I go out with friends, it's like, oh, I got it, or don't worry about it, or
Hmm.
those little things that's like, no, I need every single penny. It's like, it's not that serious. I'll get it back. You stole the $5 that was on the table that you seen over there. It's not saying who cares, but like, I got big stuff to stress over. I'm not stressing over that. I'll make
Yeah.
$5. I'll make $5 back.
Oh, I get that. And yeah, and when I would talk to students about their aspirations and stuff, sometimes they didn't have a real connection between what careers make. So, Johnny, what would you like to own? Oh, I want a Maybach. I want a mansion. I want a, okay. And what do you want to do? I want to be a social worker. Oh, Johnny, those two don't necessarily,
Right,
hey,
correlate.
they don't know those connections. I'm not saying you can't get one, Johnny, but may not be just on your check as a social worker. So that those kind of connections, they don't necessarily know those.
They gotta make sense. But they're not gonna. Everybody can't tell them that. It has to be somebody that they kind of will hear what they're saying. Cause a rapper,
Okay.
you tell somebody a rapper, you ain't gonna be no like. What are you talking about? You get like 10 views on your YouTube. Like, what do you like? Like, not saying that you can't be there, but nobody knows who you are. You're not. You know, it's I don't know. You can't tell those kind of people that already feel like they're gonna be a rapper anything. Those people have to be like another rapper or another producer has to say, "Hey, no," for them to be like, "Okay." Like, for some people, they're gun ho and they're gonna make the basketball team, and then they go out and they see other kids are twice as tall as them and twice as better than them. They're like, yeah. But you couldn't. But the mom who said, "I don't know. I've seen you play. I don't know if this is gonna be the best for you." She's, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." And then they go there and then they can't even score, and now they understand.
I get it. You can't just tell them, I got it. As a teacher, I've had kids tell me the same thing. In my once upon a time, I'd go play them. I said, well, let's go play, Johnny. You can't, if you can't beat Old Miss Temple, you're probably not
Right,
going to the NBA.
right.
So, but until then, I hear you. I get that. Okay. Yeah, I've
And as you
had
see, I
this.
give examples. I give examples to things to make it easy to correlate.
Okay.
So if I wasn't talking to you and I was talking to a older white guy, might give a different relation. I might give different examples because he's gonna understand that. He's not gonna understand that. He ain't
I
picked up
understand that.
basketball in his life,
I got it.
but he might have. But he might ride a horse or ride.
Oh my God.
He might have fished or done something else. That's what they do here in the
Yeah.
country. That's
Yeah. No, my
they'll
wife's from the
chase
country. I get
they'll
it.
chase
No,
a chicken
that
and
is
stuff
too.
like that. And then you take a city boy out there and it's like they running from a chicken or they're running from a thing or a pig or when the country boy will jump on the pig and wrestle it down. So it's a different. But then you flip it and you take that country boy and put him in the city, and they might get robbed, lose, come back with this, with nothing. They got swindled or finessed out of
Yeah.
the things that are the corner boys that say, "Hey, I'll sell you this shirt," and they might get hustled when the other boy, a city boy, knows how to tell them no, or I'm good, or don't go down that block,
Mm.
or you know, and then what I'm saying. It's a lot of different things. It's a lot of different things. I think about all that, so that's kind of why I'm where I
I,
am.
s- I see that now that speaking the cultural language. Now I get that. I understand that. Well, I guess I could do this for another hour, but to be kind to your time, I guess I'll wrap it up by asking, well, I guess. So what do you see going forward for Mr. and Miss Mentoring? Or I'm aware, but maybe tell about some of the events and things that you currently do, and then what you see going forward.
Well, business wise, you have to look into additional resources or additional revenue streams because you can't rely on just the government. You can't rely on just Medicaid, because those are there one year and the next year they're not. So business wise, you have to kind of beef up beef up your revenue stream opportunities to in order to kind of succeed. Uh, I mean, we're going to continue to do what we've done since the beginning, but just on a different scale because we know where the priorities are. We kind of know we fine tune who our population is. Um, so there's no where, we're not playing two sides of the fence or, we know exactly when you're talking about Mr. and Miss Mentor and what kind of kid you're dealing with, um, and the services, what you're going to get from coming to us versus another agency or something like
Okay.
that. Um, Speaking to people, like you said, a lot of people don't know what you didn't know all of what we did until you came to the facility and you saw it. So having people that have some funding behind it, and some other avenues that can add to the kind of what we do and keep it consistent and keep it um I won't say keep the doors open, because if it was just me by myself, I can keep the doors open. But it's the salaries and the, opening a bigger facility so we can house more kids. That's where the funding and all that kind of stuff really plays. It's not like we're out here splurging. Um,
Right.
when we went to the county council, my salary was, by far the lowest out of CEOs and um program directors, so it's not like I'm taking a cut, not because I don't want to, it's just can't afford it. It's, do I want to pay, have quality staff or have a nice facility, or do I want to, be like a CEO that is driving a Maybach and everybody else is struggling, so I don't really like Maybach, so I don't care.
Okay, fine.
you know,
G-Wagon, whatever.
whatever, but I'm just, examples I've already, it's kind of like a young kid until he gets them chains and that status. It's hard to tell him you don't really need that.
Okay.
I've had rims and loud bass. I don't want anything to come with that because I don't want a female that likes me for that, and I don't want a police officer to mistaking me for a drug dealer doing the same things. So I don't even want that kind of attention. I don't even want no. I used to. I'm in a fraternity. I don't even want my fraternity tag on there because I don't want them to somebody might have hate that fraternity or had a bad experience with fraternity, and now they running me off the road, or I don't got time for that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be able to be labeled or hey, that's Mr. Collins right there. I don't.
Yeah.
I want to just be able to blend in and live nice and copacetic.
That's grown up stuff right there. That is
Yeah.
grown up stuff. I understand that.
But you
Yeah.
couldn't tell me before. I needed to have a nice car. I needed to have a little bit of jewelry, and I needed to see that. Now it's like I don't care. So
I think that's one of the more impactful things that you mentioned today about the idea that there are some things, particularly that young people just really won't get until they've seen something or experienced something. You can, tell them, but sometimes they just won't get it until they've experienced a few things. And not just young people, adults too, but
yeah.
I think particularly young people. I think that's a powerful point. And the last thing is not so much a Mr. and Miss Mentoring question, but it's a Mr. Collins question. So when you are not at a facility helping these kids and stuff, what do you do for yourself for fun, relaxation? I imagine it's hard to keep that balance to do that, but when you do squeeze in Mr. Collins time, what's that look like as much as you could tell them?
I mean, to be honest, it really, to me, I don't feel like it's. I just have a variety of options to do. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's dancing, sometimes it's going out with the fellas, sometimes it's going out with the wife. It's kind of sometimes it's going to the gym, sometimes it's riding a motorcycle, sometimes it's boxing. For me, I give myself so many options because that one might not work that day, or if
Yeah,
you do the same thing
good
if you
point.
do the same workout every day, it's in the beginning it's gonna be hard and then it's gonna be real easy. And then you're not doing anything. It's just normal. Your body's used to it.
Mm-hmm.
You walk 1,000 steps, your body's used to that 1,000 steps, and then it's not helping you it's not hurting you, but you ain't getting sore no more. You ain't,
Mm-hmm.
you could go a faster time, so that kind of stuff. So uh, in order to grow, you got to constantly be doing different things and do the same workout, but flip it and do it the other way. Instead of 10 reps, do 5, but way heavier, or vice versa,
Mm-hmm.
or work out, then run, then or run and then work out. Like change it up. You got to like play. I don't have no playbook to how it works. I know I do my routine. I'm gonna work out 3 to 4 days a week, no matter what. Whether it's basketball, boxing, working out, I don't care. I'm gonna be working out sometime, but that's like my release,
That's
So
important. That's a very important point. I even like the physical aspect mentioned to my virtual students, because many of them are at home all the time. They don't have to get up and leave. And so I mentioned that to them to be purposeful about not just their recreation, but physically doing stuff, walking, biking, sports, something, moving, and keep moving. So appreciate
can't
it.
go
Well, Mr.
wrong.
Collins, I appreciate this very much. You touched on a whole bunch of different areas. I'm excited about my students, but also people at large. seeing this interview. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, sir.
Sure, for sure. And we'll do it again.
Definitely. Yes. I don't want this to be the last one. And I'm going to edit this in part out. But when you get a moment,